It's my very great pleasure to introduce Dr. Marina Henriques Coutinho, who is returning again to the university. She is currently here as a visiting professor, and she was doing a seminar two or 3 weeks ago, and today she's going to be in conversation with me, covering slightly different areas. So, Marina, welcome, and first of all, I think it would be very useful to hear how you undertook the business of getting theatre in communities into or onto the UniRio curriculum, because I know there was a deal of, it was unusual and there was some resistance in the academic sector to this kind of work at the time you were trying to do this. So perhaps you would like to address that.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here in Winchester again. I was here in 2008 taking part of the MA Theatre and Media for Social Development with Tim. And so I'm very glad to be here again to talk with you about what I've been doing in Rio, and especially because I'm with Tim again. To answer your first question, I need to come back a little bit later, because before I became a teacher at the university, I worked for many years with social projects in Rio, supported by NGOs, and in favelas, and facilitating drama process with youth, with young people, children and young people. And those projects believe in theatre and other arts as a way to promote better quality of life for children and youth, which is good, which I believe. But I developed a kind of dilemma working with this field, because not all, but many of those projects were highly sponsored, and they disseminated the idea that the majority of youth people in the favelas are vulnerable to become part of the drug trafficking gangs. So after a couple of years, I had a break. I decided to stop and come back to the university too.
Could I just ask you a historical point? Those programs, those NGO programs you were working on, did they exist prior to the election of Lula and the PT government, or were they a consequence of that?
They exist. During the 90s, we had a boom, explosion of these projects.
Of NGO work?
Of NGO projects. Right. Actually, Lula used to say that if the whole public services could work in Brazil, we didn't need NGOs.
Right.
So I developed a kind of dilemma, because while I thought I was doing a great job with these projects, they were highly sponsored, and they disseminated that bad idea that they would play the role as saviors. So after a couple of years, I had a break, and I went back to the university to study. I had my doctorate study reflecting about that reality, and I became a teacher at the Federal University of Rio. At that moment, the applied theatre field, or the community theatre field, as we call in Brazil, was a reality. There are people that work in prisons, working in hospitals, working in favelas, working in projects at in schools, or in the field of education, informal education. So the reality was knocking the door of the university. So the university needed to respond, to accept that subject.
And was this explosion of this kind of activity, was it more in Rio than elsewhere in Brazil, or was that countrywide?
I think in the capitals, in the metropolis, and especially in Rio, because the violence during the 90s were also exploding.
Yeah.
So the NGOs get together with companies, and they created this field of social projects. Of course, we can't generalize that all of them had a bad intention, but some of them was really trying to sell this idea that they were saving people.
Yeah.
When I entered at the university, this field was a reality, and so I gained the space, and I decided to create a discipline called Theatre in Communities to discuss all that things and all the criticisms. Actually, the criticism I developed about that field, about work, what means work with youth in the favelas. So now the subject is recognized in the undergraduate course and in the postgraduation course also. It's a space that is consolidated, and we have several students interested to study this and to research, to develop research, etc. So the other thing is that together with this, I created the extension program, which is, we are going to talk about it, Theatre in Communities program, which happens outside the university in a complex of favelas called Maré.
Just before you develop that, was the university already used to the idea of extension projects in other disciplines, or were you introducing a new idea?
I think I introduced the idea that it could happen in a favela with youth, but in that time we had already a very good program happening in prisons. A colleague of mine coordinated a prison theatre project for 20 years now, and another colleague of mine has a clown hospital project for 20 years too. So, but I think what I was bringing new was the research stuff, the thinking about this field, what it means.
Yeah, right.
So this program happens in a complex of favelas called Maré, and involves the participation of undergraduate students going to facilitate workshops with young people in several places in this complex of favelas. This is Maré. Maré it's a complex because it is formed by 16 favelas, one each other, next to each other, and they have about 1,300 people living in this place. Here, favelas have suffered a history of abandonment by the public authorities. There is a lack of education, of health, of public security, and there are frequent armed conflict. But it's also a place full of life, full of creativity, and full of resistance. This is a place, it's called Marriott Center. It's a cultural center, and it is an example of the daily struggle that people in Maré are involved. It's an enormous shed, which is one of our partnerships. So the program has 3 partnerships. One of the partnerships is this place. No, this is Marriott Center. It's a picture of our classes there. Diego was a student last year, and so he is working with the young people. We work every Saturday with these groups, and our work is based on, is very physical, because our culture is a very physical culture. So we are always working with body, with improvisation, with dance, with music. So everything we do, it's the kind of bottom way process, using what they have in their bodies.
So do you rely on the students to provide the accomplishment of dance, of music, or do you bring in professionals that are specialists in those areas?
Well, I think our students are very well skilled. They have their own skill. Like Diego is a jongueiro. Jongueiro is a kind of, jongo is a kind of dance and with drums. So he was bringing what he already has in his culture. It's actually his black culture. So, and it resonates very well with the young people. And also because the students are very young too, so they are really together, and my whole is just really to facilitate these meetings, because I'm not imposing any methodology. They are creating their own methodology together with the groups.
Right.
Right? So the next place is a health center, and it is very interesting what happens there, because last year we had an intergenerational group, so we had these ladies here with the young people, and we like to work with the idea that this space is for celebrating life and health instead of illness. So they are together every Saturday doing theater. Yes, and this is the other place. It's called Arena de Cro, which is not in Maré. It is in another complex of favelas, very close to Maré. This is we promote meetings, and meetings where we put everybody together, because Maré is a divided territory, because the gang trafficking, the drug trafficking gangs. The territory is divided, so people from one place couldn't cross the frontier to go to another place. So in these meetings, we promote this meeting to put everybody together. And actually, this is a quality of this place, the Marriott Center, because it is a cultural art center in a favela, which invite people from Maré to be there, but also from the other parts of the city, because there is in this place we have the extension program, but we have also a very famous dance company rehearsing there, Lia Rodrigues Dance Company, and she invited people from the richest part of the city to be there to see their play. So it's a place that congregates people from all parts of the city. So it's a way to change the dynamic of the city, because it is a divided city. We have these areas called favelas where poor people live, and we have class media and richest people living in the best areas of the city.
So apart from your students, obviously, what are your strategies for getting people from the wealthier parts of the city to come to Maré?
I think Lia Rodrigues, this choreographer, is doing this very well, because she decided to be there. It was a decision, and because she is very famous and people really want to see what she is producing with her group, she facilitates, for example, transportation. She put her buses from the south zone, the richest zone, to bring people to there.
But is that just in order that they can be audiences for her shows, or are there any sort of meaningful interactions with local people?
We have in this place have a lot of partnerships, like famous artists who goes there to show their plays, or offer workshops, musicians. So in our program we have something interesting happening, because not all of the students from the university come from a poor background. They come from a rich background. So and they are going there to work with those people. So we are trying to subvert this logic, putting not only bring people from Maré to the university, because we do this, but the university people to Maré. It's clear?
I think it's clear, yes, but has that been going on long enough for you to be able to say what effect that mixing has had? Have you seen changes in attitude or behaviour because of that?
I think the main change is that in the beginning this place was almost empty. Even people from Maré was very, what is this? Dance and theatre, this is a weird, this is not for us. But since 2000, in the beginning of 2000, where this place was open for the community, they are much more there. The dance school who is running there has now 300 people from Maré doing dancing.
Right.
So, and the audience from outside, I think it's recognizing the place as an interesting place. Actually, in the last elections, presidents, I forgot to tell you about this. Fernando Haddad, who was the opponent of Bolsonaro, was there.
Right.
He was there. So it became a very important place in the city. Not in Maré, but not for Maré, but for the city.
Yeah.
This is a meeting at UniRio because occupying the university for us is a very important idea, because the university is a place that traditionally is for the privileged ones. So in the moment where we invite poor black people to be there, they realize that they have the right to be there. Because it is a public university, it's a state university. And curiously, in Brazil, people who has a very good background in schools, who studied in private schools, get the place in the best universities, which are the state universities. And poor people who has this lack of education never reach this place.
Yeah, like Oxford and Cambridge here would be a parallel. It's full of privately educated, and then they're in a public institution.
Exactly. And the PT, the Labour Party policies during the last 15 years, they created policies to open the state university for black poor people with
Affirmative action.
Actions, yes. So this is this is at UniRio, and we use all the rooms at the university. We go there on Saturday when it's empty, so we share all the rooms at the university, and we have a tour to the university, so it's very interesting. And I remember when one of the young people asked me if the university was free, because he didn't know that the university was free, and I said, oh, it is free. It is public.
Yeah.
So what has happened that is very interesting is that people who started to do theater in the program are getting into the university. They are studying there, and they are facilitating process in Maré. So we have this kind of circle.
Yes. Do you think they will stay free, given the new politics in Brazil?
I hope so. I'm not sure, because Bolsonaro was elected with a very conservative ideas and neoliberalistic ideas. So I think what can happen is probably it's getting privatizing slowly. Privatizing. And all the policies that Labour Party has built from the last 15 years, perhaps they will try to cut or to, I don't know. Yeah, this is in the university, in the room at the university. I like this picture. This is the young lady dancing with a student at the university. I think it's very symbolic. This is a visit of a professional, almost professional group, because they are the acting students from UniRio presenting a play in Marriott Center. So again, this idea that bringing people to there. And many of those, because people from class media never put their feet on a favela, because there is this idea that is a dangerous place. So for these people, I think it's an interesting way to show that a social program can be good for everybody, for the university students, for the community,
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I'm not dealing with money, because it's a state university, so I don't have that concern about being sponsored by a company, that I have to do a report saying that I'm saving children, etc., etc. So this is an audience in Marriott Center. It's always full, this is a visit to the municipal theatre, which we think is important um, to offer them the opportunity to see other places in the city. Like the municipal theatre is the biggest theatre in Rio, very rich. So again, for them to be there, it's quite important to feel that they have the right to be there. Again. So now we can talk a little bit about one of the process we had in 2017, and those are the three students, Diego, Felipe, and Juliana, and they were the facilitators in this project, this process called, which resulted in a play called Unicorn: How a Teenager is Born. And this project started when one of our teams told the group that she had dreamed with a unicorn, that the unicorn told her that it could save her for her problems in the school and with her family. Mm-hmm. So the group was delighted with the idea to develop a play about this subject, and they decided to talk about adolescence during the process. So then the facilitators, of course, they accept the idea, and they started to create a play, and this play was developed in a way that I think most of our process happens, because every year, because last year and the year before the last year we had 3 groups, so each group created one performance on one play. And so we started to work in 2011, so each year we have about 3 or 4 plays, and we have a repertoire now. And most of them starts with a kind of pedagogy of asking question. Okay, if you want to talk about adolescence, what it means for you, and the facilitators bring ideas to debates and to the improvisations. So in this process, they asked, how was your parents' adolescence? If you were to write a letter for yourself in the future, what would you write? What objects and images could you bring to our meetings to speak about this moment of your life? So they use testimonials. Mm-hmm. They use letters. They use objects, and they built the play like this way. So the performance was a result of a dialogue between the facilitators and the group, a kind of open journey, like discovering each day what's going to happen, and discovering a way to put this on stage artistically or aesthetically on stage. And the curious thing is that we work sometimes with dramatic tests, like we had the Sets One,
Good Person Sets One.
We have other plays, but most of them choose to work organically, avoiding tests, yes, and building their own scripts. So that happens in the Unicorn too.
So how many meanings, or what range of meaning attached itself to the metaphor of the unicorn?
Well, I don't know if I understand your question, but the unicorn was used as a metaphor because actually, in the end, of course, the unicorn couldn't save them, but they realized that, well, during the process, they were saving them by themselves. Okay, being aware about their problems, being aware about their reality, and how they could subvert it, and how they could solve these situations in their lives. Is it clear?
Yeah, that is clear, and it brings me, I think, to an interesting underlying question that might apply to this project and perhaps more generally. In the course of your work now over 8 years or so in Maré, do you come up against the problem of what areas of difficulty, what issues are able to be resolved within the community, and what issues come up against the larger problems of the macro politics. And in the second case, what is to be done? In other words, I suppose, do your art processes in Maré lead to any kind of interventions in wider society? Or is it always trying to solve what you can within the local moment?
I think it's very difficult to disconnect what is local from what is global, what are you calling the macro. So, for example, last year, which was a very difficult year, because of the elections, because we had a candidate who was, well, he is in power now, who was supporting dictatorship, torture, and racism, homophobia, etc. He is clearly against, in our opposite side. One of the process started just after Marielle Franco assassination. Don't know if you heard about Marielle Franco. Was a mayor in the city of Rio, who was assassinated because she was trying to beat the corruption and the white man who is there in power always was there. So they decided to create a play about their black roots and talking about feminism too. So I think in a very timid way, I don't know if it's timid, but it's a little revolution.
Yeah.
We are trying to create more democratic spaces and spaces where they can, with critique and creativity, subvert that reality. And I think if more people do this, and I think there are lots of people doing this around the world, we are able, in a long process, perhaps to create or to build another society, another world,
right?
Perhaps. So this in here they talked about the mobile, because adolescents are always addicted to mobile, so it was an interesting way to talk about this and to criticize this and to tell, because moms and fathers parents were in the audience, so they had all the plays has this connection with the audience too. So it's a way to, because theater is communication, so they are always trying to communicate things with the community, because the audiences are always their families and communities.
Sure.
Well, there were the subject, the conflict between mother and daughter. So they put all the stuff that were concerning them in the play. This was a funny thing. This boy was the youngest boy, and he became the crush, the crush of all the girls. So he was like, oh, that's so nice to be the crush of all these beautiful girls. So they played with this idea. And there were a scene about bullying, about racism, and etc. And one of this girl, one of her comments was that doing the play, she was saying, look, this is me, these are us. So they are trying to show who they actually are to the audience. And this happens not only in the play, because they choose to create an exhibition called Shared Affects. So they bring photographs and objects to show to the spectators before the play. And we present the plays at Marriott Center, but also at the university. So it's nice to see, it's interesting to see the community families going to the university to watch the plays. It's because in Rio, it's in the richest part of the Rio, it's a neighborhood called Ruca, closer to the Sugar Loaf. So it's
Did you have to provide the transport to get communities to the university, or do they come
Well,
anyway?
until last year we had the bus, the university bus,
Yeah.
for free, and I hope I will have this year too. Until Bolsonaro cut everything, I think. But we are struggling. I will keep struggling.